As always, don't forget to check the video description down below for the best price on parts and tools I use in today's video. We also have online repair manuals, and we're partnered with the school. Remember, if you know how a system on a car works, you can fix the car. So today I had a call from a customer. They said, hey, we got a bad alternator. Looked at it, it was actually a crank no start condition. So let's find out and see what's going on with it. It's a 2010 Hyundai Sonata. Okay guys, so they thought it was a bad alternator. So first thing I did, checked the battery and went ahead. The battery actually was not very good. They may have a bad battery too, but then I went ahead and jumped the car, went ahead and tried to spin it, and the car was spin over and not cut on. So the first thing I did was, and the complaint was that the car just cut off on them and then wouldn't start back, and they believe they need a battery, and they believe it cut off because they think the alternator was causing the battery to die. So anyways, verified that if you put a new battery in there, this thing will run. So what I did first thing, because I feel like the easiest thing to do on this one for a crank no start condition, was I went ahead, you can see I took this off and I took that piece off down there, and that's just like a 10 millimeter. You can see, boom, boom, my finger there, screwdriver or 10 millimeter, and then you just kind of pull this guy back, boom, pow. And then what I did was I took a flathead screwdriver. I sprayed starter fluid in here, and I'm showing you how to do it. I took a flathead screwdriver, I pushed it in the bottom and then twisted it so it made this throttle plate stay opened. Then I took a starter fluid can, stuck it down in there, sprayed starter fluid in there, put the hose back on. Whenever you do that, always have a fire extinguisher. I have one. I'll try and leave one in the video description down below, but I always, where is my fire? There it is. I just use like one of these canned ones, and they spray for longer, and I've put out fires with them before. They work pretty good. And this is my starter fluid, just starter fluid with the little thing on there. So you take your little can, you just fit the whole can down here, boom, boom, and then make sure your nozzle is in past the plate, and then only spray for 2 seconds. 2 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, that is it. If you do more than that, I've blown intakes, just kind of popped them, pop goes the weasel. And I had a fire on a intake manifold one time, and I mean, we threw towels on it and stuff, put it out, but I had to replace the, not the intake manifold, the intake tube. Anyways, just make sure you have an extinguisher. Make sure no more than 2 Mississippis, because it is real. You can pop goes the weasel, and you can start fires. Anyways, I did that. I did it 3 times. The first 2 times, you know, it would kind of crank up, and then it would die down, and I read the codes, and it said unmetered air. And so then I did it that 3rd time. I sprayed in there and came back real quick and just kind of pushed this on and pushed that on, start up, and it started up and ran for about a second. And I was like, okay, car's not getting fuel. It's probably a bad fuel pump. Now, when I called the parts store, they said there is a direct injection fuel pump. They said it looks like a regulator right on side the thing. I don't see one, but I imagine that could be, oh, that thing right there, that's probably your direct injection pump. I could be wrong, don't quote me on it, but it looks like a pump. Can you see my finger pointing at it? I'm touching it. This piece right here, that is one possible cause. The other one is, of course, the fuel pump, which I'll show you the location of the fuel pump for this car. Try not to get their license plate. So this is the fuel pump location, and basically you just come back here in the trunk, and guys, look at what I found today. I did all this, I got the fuel pump out. I'm like, yep, we're gonna change that fuel pump, and check this out. Ta-da! No gas. So neither me nor the customer decided to just make sure there was fuel in it. So that was the problem, but these were the symptoms of a bad fuel pump, and we see this all the time with like a crank no start. So that is one thing you do to check a crank no start. The other thing, I'll just kind of briefly go through these with you. I like to do these videos, just kind of walk you through. If I just go through all the diagnoses I do and show you how I found out what's wrong with it, I'm sure you guys can benefit from it greatly. The other thing you could do is you can come in here. I believe this guy just pops off, but the fuel injector connector, you can take a Noid light, plug in a Noid light, crank it, see if there's signal. I'll show you what a Noid light looks like. apparently I don't have my Noid light. I'll put a link for one below in the video description, Noid light. And it's just a little light, it just plugs into the fuel injector. Spin it, if it lights up, you know, hey, I'm getting fuel injector signal. And the reason you want to know that is because a crank sensor or cam sensor a bad one will not give you fuel injector signal or spark. You can also imagine you popped it. Yeah, I see let's see if this just pops right off. Yeah, so there we go. So these are ignition coils. It's like a 10 millimeter, and this just squeeze and pull off. It's probably like a 16 millimeter for your spark plug. You can pull your spark plug off, check, make sure it's not terrible, but you can also take this off, connect it back up, and hook up a spark tester. Go ahead and spin it over and see if it lights up. Again, I'll put a link below in the video description for a spark tester, and that's how you can know if you're getting the spark signal. Those are the two most common things. I'm trying to think. Another thing I've ran into a few times is that the person was still making payments on the car, and they had a cutoff installed on the car, and the dealership had cut off the vehicle, so it'll spin over and won't crank. Basically, the cutoff cuts the fuel or whatever, so it'll look like a bad fuel pump. The other thing, security. Sometimes a security system can cause this condition too, because it just cuts the fuel. One other thing, I see this almost once a month. I'm in a parts store picking up a part, and I hear some dude saying, yeah, I need a fuel pump, and because it won't crank, and I think I'm not getting fuel, this fuel pump's gonna fix it. The parts store sells so many fuel filters, and everybody wants it to be a fuel filter. I have yet to see a fuel filter cause a car not to start. So typically it's your fuel pump, crank sensor, cam sensor. If you have a distributor style, like on a 90s model Honda Civic, those are real bad about going bad. Nissan, those distributors are real bad about going bad. And that you can decipher if it's a distributor or if it's a crank or cam sensor, because the distributor only controls the ignition, and like a crank sensor would control ignition and fuel injector signal, I believe. So if you're getting if you're getting fuel injector signal and you're not getting ignition signal, and you have a distributor, and hey, there's a good chance it could be like a bad distributor. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So the main things again: crank sensor, cam sensor, fuel pump, some sort of ignition problem, or you could have like a security light, or if you're making payments on the car, they're cutting it off. So anyways, that's it. That's our brief little thing for our crank no start today. Add fuel for our customer. So that's it. Thanks for watching.